The shocking truth behind the Dylan Samberg signing has just been revealed. In a recent interview with Winnipeg Jets media, Dylan Samberg discussed his new contract with the Jets, as well as how negotiations were affected by him filing for salary arbitration, how they determined what term would make sense for him, as well as why he loves the city of Winnipeg. We're going to dive into all this and as well that interview, but before we do so, I couldn't help but notice it looks like about 82.4% of people watching the videos here on Jets Digest have not subscribed to the channel. I'd highly suggest you throw a subscription. We're talking Jets all throughout the offseason, and every day that ticks by is one day closer to the new season and one day closer to us getting more and more news here on the channel. So make sure you subscribe. It's the best way to make sure you're staying informed. So let's hop into the video here. Let's talk about this interview, which, by the way, was conducted by the Winnipeg Jets media. However, it was provided on YouTube by the Illegal Curve hockey show. My apologies. I'd highly suggest you guys go check them out. The link to the full interview will be in the description. We're not going to pull every single thing out of there because obviously we don't want to just steal content straight up from them. So make sure you go check them out. So let's dive into the interview, and what I think was the most important question that was asked to him was by Dave Minuk, also of the Illegal Curve hockey show. He asked him, how they determined the term that they ended up signing on, and this is what Dylan Samberg had to say.
Well, you always want to have longer term. Everyone wants that, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. With both sides just can't agree, and with the 3 years, I still have some time. I have 1 year proving myself, and I want to continue to add more years onto that and prove that I belong here. And I'm excited to do it in Winnipeg for 3 more years, and hopefully later down the road that continues to go, and I can stay there longer.
That was a very interesting answer from Dylan Samberg. We had heard many, many rumors leading up to this contract that Dylan Samberg was looking for a long-term deal with Winnipeg. We know that, his partner is someone who is, active in the community in Winnipeg. We also know that he is a Minnesotan boy, so the Winnipeg climate is not too unfamiliar for him, as well as further to that, the Winnipeg Jets are a good team, so it totally makes sense that he was looking for a long-term deal. And what I really pulled out of this interview was the fact that of the two parties, of the Winnipeg Jets and Dylan Samberg, it was the Winnipeg Jets who, pumped the brakes and said, let's only go for a 3-year deal. And, the reasoning for it that he gave seemed almost like talking points that he would have heard from Kevin Cheveldayoff or whoever was representing the Winnipeg Jets in these negotiations, saying things like, I've only been in the top 4 for 1 year, which he didn't say exactly the top 4, but that's the way I took it. Having played prior with Nate Schmidt on that third pair, which, by the way, I think should give him some credit because that third pair was phenomenal all of last year. The season before this past season. And I think that Dylan Samberg should not be having to try and argue his point to try and get a long-term deal. I actually think that going on a short-term deal, if you looked at my last video, was a kind of a silly thing for the Jets to do, considering the fact that Dylan Samberg is 26 years old. At this point, this is his last contract being an RFA. So every single year you're able to add on to that deal. You're buying UFA years. Obviously, you'll have to pay a little bit more money for that, but the Winnipeg Jets don't really have an issue with their salary cap at this moment. So I just don't see why they wouldn't go for it. And once again, even further to that point, he's 26 years old. This is right when a guy is getting into his prime. It doesn't really make sense to sign a guy on a bridge deal when he's going to have the best years of his career during these years. By the end of this, contract that he's done, he'll be 29 years old, and at that point, he'll have tons of evidence to show, hey, you guys need to pay me money. I want to stay here. I like it here. I like it here in Winnipeg. You guys have trouble keeping people here in Winnipeg. I want to stay. And at that point, the cap will have gone up probably $20 million more dollars. And on top of that, he's going to have so much more leverage because 1, he can just walk as a UFA, and 2, he can go and show, hey, you guys had the chance to give me this deal when I had already shown that I was a key member of the top 4 of your defense core, but you didn't, and now you got to pay me. And it's just one of those things about paying for future results versus paying for past results. You never want to pay for past results because They already got paid for that. You're not going to pay for something that is something that a player has already given you. You want to pay for what they will give you. And so even further to that, just to kind of back up my point, I want to talk a little bit more about both Neil Pionk and Dylan Samberg, because the priorities of the Winnipeg Jets management here, I think, are a little bit out of whack. For example, Neil Pionk was also due for a new contract this year. He is 30 years old now at the start of this season. Actually, I believe his birthday was just today, even, maybe yesterday. Happy birthday, Neil Pionk. Shout out. But regardless, Neil Pionk was due for a new contract, and the Jets, in the middle of the season, gave him a contract extension of 6 extra years for $7 million each. My issue with this is that Neil Pionk has kind of had some up and down results with the Winnipeg Jets, and the main thing is that Neil Pionk is 30 years old, as I mentioned. Why are you giving a guy 6 more years when he's 30 years old right now? That takes him all the way to 36. As we discussed with prime years, Neil Pionk should only be getting worse, and so giving him more money now and for the future, as he continues to get worse, makes no sense versus giving a guy like Dylan Samberg a little bit more money to get some more years on his contract. And that's where my frustration comes in here, because like I said, this clip really gave us more insight into it and really, really kind of cements the fact that the Winnipeg Jets were the ones who wanted to pump the brakes. I mean, we can even take a look at the results between Neil Pionk and Dylan Samberg. It's funny because on the last video where I discussed the Samberg signing, I had a lot of people saying, "Oh no, Neil Pionk is the guy who stirs the drink." There, just because probably my guess would be because Neil Pionk's the guy who gets points between the two of them. But we can take a look at their stats when they play with each other or without them. And just for context, these stats that I have on the screen here, these are a with or without you chart on Natural Stat Trick. It basically just gives an idea as to, how a player plays with someone versus when they are playing with someone else or without them, essentially. And I did the last 2 years because I wanted to include Neil Pionk playing with Brendan Dillon, because the only times he would have played without Dylan Samberg this year would have been when Samberg was hurt and he was probably playing with Stanley, and I don't think that that's fair to Neil Pionk to just give him those stats. But anyways, regardless, let's get to the stats that we're looking at here. My main thing is, so all of these stats are per 60, so that's just a way to make them all even out based on how much time was given. It doesn't make sense to compare if Neil Pionk played without Dylan Samberg for an entire season versus him playing with Dylan Samberg for 3/4 of a season, because obviously they're gonna have more goals for or goals against, or they'll be more likely to have more goals for or goals against if they've played more time. So that's the main reason for that. But these are just very simple stats: goals for, goals against per 60, as well as goals for percentage. And then you have expected goals per 60, which expected goals is basically just a way to give value to chances that are created. Chances that are created happen more often than goals, and so that's why they are good to look at statistic-wise to see actually if you're generating offense or suppressing offense. But my main thing is here, anyways, let's talk about it now. The biggest thing that you can see here is that Neil Pionk, when he plays without Dylan Samberg, his goals against per 60 goes up, his goals for share goes down, his goals against per 60, his expected goals per 60 goes up, his expected goals for percentage goes down. Basically, as a whole, Neil Pionk is a better defenseman when he plays with Dylan Samberg. And I mean, we could take a look even at their JFresh charts, which, Dylan Samberg has an immaculate JFresh chart. If you've never seen these before, blue is good, red is bad. If you see a percentage, that is where the player ranks in the league. And Dylan Samberg is ranked in the 85th percentile for the amount of WAR that he provides. WAR just means wins above replacement. It's basically just adding together all the stats that you can to give a value to it. It's pretty well known. If you're not sure about WAR, look it up really quickly. It's a very interesting read. But the main thing here is that Dylan Samberg is not only great defensively, he's a 6'4" defenseman who's great at suppressing rush chances. He's great at separating players from the puck. And when he gets the puck, he's great at passing it out of the zone and maintaining possession. This is why that despite the fact that Dylan Samberg doesn't score many points, when he's on the ice, at even strength, He is one of the better offensive defensemen just because of the fact that he gets the puck in his own zone and moves it up the ice. Whereas you can take a look at Neil Pionk, and also just so you're wondering, the JFresh charts are a 3-year weighted average. These are the past 3 years. And Neil Pionk's is not as nice looking as Dylan Samberg's, unfortunately. He's not as good of a PK player. He's not as good defensively. He's definitely not as good offensively, which is very shocking to me, but regardless, it is what it is. But my point here is, again, there is no reason here why you should be giving Neil Pionk more money for longer at an older age than Dylan Samberg. Dylan Samberg is the better defenseman of the two and is entering his prime, is in the middle of his prime right now. And there's so many reasons why it makes no sense to give him a short-term deal, especially when you are willing to give a guy like Neil Pionk a longer term. And especially, here's the thing. If you think that Neil Pionk is great, if you think that pairing is great together, which I think they are very good together, it makes, sure, I can twist my mind to say you can give Neil Pionk 6 more years at this amount of money, but I would only want to do it with the caveat that I'm keeping Dylan Samberg as his partner for those 6 years. That's where the frustration comes in here. And again, just to underscore even further, I brought this up in the last video. The Winnipeg Jets last year, they went 45-13-2 with Dylan Samberg in their lineup. They were the version of them that won the President's Trophy. Whereas when they played without Dylan Samberg last year, they were a 500 team. Of course, it's a smaller sample size, but when you have almost as many losses in that many games as you did in the much higher sample, it just goes to show how useful and important this player is to the lineup. And even further to that, like the final thing I'm going to talk about here, the final thing I wanted to mention and bring up here, in the interview, he was asked, what he loves about Winnipeg. I'll roll the clip right now.
Yeah, no, I've definitely found that there's a lot of good hole-in-the-wall restaurants around Winnipeg, especially Italian restaurants. So that's been good. And, it reminds me a lot of home. Just less trees up there, but everything, the weather's the same from where I grew up, and everything's pretty much the same, and everyone's really been nice and welcoming, which is great. And and then looking forward to the season. I mean, I think we have a really good group here and a really good chance at making something special. And I think we proved that last year during the regular season, and getting past that first round, I think was a huge stepping stone for us. And I'm excited and really looking forward to next season.
So as you can see, Dylan Samberg loves it here in Winnipeg. He loves the community. He loves the team that he plays for. He loves playing for a team that is competitive. And again, my main point here is I just don't see why the Winnipeg Jets wouldn't have locked this guy up long term. But maybe I'm wrong. You let me know. Let me know what you think. Do you think that the Winnipeg Jets should have signed Dylan Samberg for longer? Do you think that the money they're giving him right now is good? Is it too much? Is it not enough? Let me know what you think in the comments down there. Make sure you throw a like on this video. And like I said, I'll be here on Jets Digest breaking it all down. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.